What's up, War Room? Final in-season edition. Joe Caporoso, Connor Rogers. We are going to answer a handful of your questions in the Discord, mostly pertaining to the NFL draft, but some pertaining to the current regime. Then we're going to hop over to the pod, talk to Jets' last game of the year, some of the news around the team. They've made a couple transactions, nothing emergency pod worthy, but enough for us to talk about on the pod, and a few other tidbits going around for the team. Connor, we've reached week 18. The New York Jets are not in the hunt, and they're closer to picking first than they are to being an AFC wildcard. But how are we feeling?
All right. I mean, we were talking about how it's that time of year where the Jets are in the news, and yet, we're sitting here and we're talking about other related things in the Jets news, and we're talking about the quarterbacks in a feud and all different kinds of things, and it's just disappointing that this team is not talking about playing for playoffs or a playoff appearance, or obviously the dream of hosting a playoff game, which we couldn't even fathom. So that's when you and I put our hard hats on and get ready to go into the full offseason mode. And this is an interesting one for the Jets with Aaron Rodgers' return and a roster that has a lot of bright spots and has a lot of question marks. And of course, there's a lot of work to do for the guys in charge, not just the coaching staff, but the front office as a whole, to save their jobs. And as a fan, that can excite you because you feel like the season matters so much. And as a fan, especially I think our subscribers to Badlands that are very deep in the offseason and resources and assets, it could scare you because you don't know if that could lead to more mistakes as well. So either way, Joe, as we always say, it is fascinating with this team.
We've gotten a version of this question in a few different shapes and forms in the Discord. And I'm actually going to have other Connor on the feed later in the week because we haven't had a beat writer conversation in a while. But this is kind of us putting that hat on. This is not something we do. We're not beat writers. We've never been close to being beat writers. We're just guys who talk football.
Mistaken for beat writers, but not
frequently,
beat writers.
Frequently mistaken for beat writers. We are not beat writers. But the gist of the question is, what would you ask Joe Douglas in his year-end press conference? Douglas doesn't spend a lot of time with the media. To be fair, most GMs don't spend a lot of time with the media. Douglas's are very few and far
extreme.
between them.
Let me just say, he's extreme, though. Like his combine podium, I've told this before, his combine podium is shorter compared to others and largely goes to the beat reporters. So anyway, but yes, the point stands.
The most memorable quote I think he's given in 5 years was basically, and I could be slightly misremembering it, was basically that Jamal Adams was going to be a Jet for life, and then they traded him in like 3 months after.
That or
like that.
He's at like a WFAN event doing God knows what and saying yelling on the mic, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers before the trade ever goes through.
Maybe he'll do that with Devontae this offseason.
Yeah. Really good for leverage talks. Can't imagine why they had to swap their first round picks.
Well, who needs Broderick Jones, right? He's just like mauling people up and down the field. Who needs him? Well, you got Billy Turner.
We called him maybe the next DeBrickashaw on a podcast, and that was the end of our hopes ever getting Broderick Jones.
All right, I'm not getting.
We're done
now.
We're done being.
I think my question would generally be, Joe, you've been at this for 5 years. The record is obviously not where you'd like it to be at 26-56, and I'd make sure to say that record out loud. You're going to get another crack at this, probably another year, another 2. What are you going to change going into this offseason? What have you learned from the previous 5 years that you could change to improve so this team could finally have a winning record under your stewardship? You've been at it for a while. I feel like you've probably learned some different things. What changes in terms of how you run and manage things and who you work and run and manage things with going forward? And this is hopefully me leading to my dream scenario, because the best dream scenario you could get if you're staying in reality as a Jet fan is that Douglas and Saleh make significant changes to what I'm calling their inner circles. They're number 2, they're number 3, they're number 4, and they bring in some fresh voices, some fresh opinions, more analytics, people from different organizations and backgrounds, different coaching trees. That's where I'd like to lead him towards. How would you tee up a question to him?
That's a really good one, and it's completely fair, honestly. So for me, I feel like yours is more of a look ahead. So I'll give a look back in a little bit of a similar mold. I think I would ask, in a sense, specifically your draft process have you made any changes regarding your philosophy in scouting, specifically the offensive line? And I think the examples I would hone in on, taking a guy like Mekhi Becton, who had a much higher ceiling than most linemen in that draft, but passing on a guy like Tristan Wirfs, who had such a promising floor. And then I'd be fair to him. I'd be like, you took a guy like Joe Tippmann that has a higher ceiling than John Michael Schmitz, but you passed on maybe the floor of Schmitz, and Tippmann's looked good this year. Like I would caveat that. And I think that my question, basically, if I had one question to ask Joe Douglas, and it'd be better in a private setting because it's a very long-winded one, but I would want to know, what have you learned during your one chance as the head guy of rebuilding an offensive line on your own? Like, what mistakes have you made, and what things have you found promising that you've had success with? Because it goes to the pro market too, right, Joe? Like the center, Ryan Khalil, like that was a disaster. Yep. Dwayne Brown, unfortunately, it felt like there's been a chain link with the offensive line. Like they make one mistake and then they make the next mistake because they made the previous mistake.
What's also frustrating is like they took this first step towards a couple right decisions, but they let the wrong guys go. Like they found Fant and Morgan Moses and got 100%. Good value, and now they're gone and successful starters on playoff teams. Like
we don't talk about that enough.
How does that happen?